building.
Yeah. Already the show goes on all night. Till the morning we dream so long. Anybody ever wonder when they would see the sun? Just remember when you come up. The show goes on. Alright, already the show goes on all night. Till the morning we dream so long. Anybody ever wonder when they would see the sun? Just remember when you come up. The show goes on.
Have you ever had the feeling that you was being had? Don't that shit that make you mad? They treat you like a slave, put chains all on your soul and put whips up on your back. They be lying through their teeth, hope you slip up off your path. I don't switch up, I just laugh, put my kicks up on their desk, unaffected by...
Thank you guys for tuning in to another segment of the Sit Down with Malik Wright. Wow, why did I just say the Sit Down with Malik Wright? Thank you guys for tuning in to another episode of the longest in studio Bengals talk show, State of the Jungle, presented by First Star Logistics. I'm your host, Malik Wright. Joined by my co-host, as always, we've got Logan, we've got Evan. We don't have Daniel, but we do have a jam-packed show. But before we jump into everything like we always do, make sure you guys give this video a like, subscribe to the YouTube channel, turn on post notifications so you guys don't miss when we go live from the First Star Logistics studio. Before I jump into anything, I want to make sure that I acknowledge the fan base that needs acknowledgement. I want to make sure I acknowledge the fan base that cries for attention on a regular basis, the fan base that likes to take victory laps when it comes to an injured quarterback, because clearly Joe Burrow played this football season. Clearly Joe Burrow got beat by the Kansas City Chiefs earlier this year, right? Clearly Joe Burrow got bounced out of the playoffs by the Kansas City Chiefs this year, because logging on X or Twitter, whatever you like to call it, you'd be led to believe that, because the victory lapping is very, very interesting to me. Very interesting to me. And to be honest with you guys, I don't get it. I don't get it. To me, this is a fan base that is very insecure with what their accomplishments are. Listen, right now, you guys are looked at as a dynasty. Right now, you guys are considered the top of the heap. Right now, you guys are the man. In the words of Ric Flair, right? To be the man, you got to beat the man. Right now, the Kansas City Chiefs are the men in the National Football League. Why the hell are you worried about a little old team in Cincinnati, Ohio that beat you guys 3 times? Right. You guys have 3 championships. We have none. Why are you so angered that the Cincinnati Bengals are not acknowledging you guys? It's very weird to me. And it's a weird hill to die on too, if you ask me. Because I know how I would feel. If my team won a championship, I wouldn't be focused on the Chiefs. I wouldn't be focused on the Steelers. I wouldn't be focused on the Bills unless, guys, I'm insecure. Unless I know we only got where we are because we never had to go through them. Make no mistake about it. Every single time the Chiefs and the Bengals have faced each other, it has come down to the wire. It has come down to less than a touchdown. Less than a touchdown. You guys are taking victory laps because you beat the Burrowless Bengals. You guys almost lost to Jake Browning, and you're taking these weird victory laps because why? Help me understand why. Right? I mean, like, if you're the world champions, act like the goddamn world champions. Because what that speaks to me is about insecurities. That speaks to me about doubt. And that's what we're going to talk about here. Make no mistake about it, guys. You guys, I get a lot of weird DMs, but the weirdest DMs I get are from Chiefs fans. And I'll tell you this, you guys want me to acknowledge this one guy, you can literally find him under every single post I make. He comments. I'll acknowledge you. I'll make you famous. I'll give you a reaction. And here's what my reaction is. I don't acknowledge you guys because I don't think that you guys are better than the Bengals. I congratulate you guys for being world champions, but I believe mano a mano, when Joe Burrow's healthy and the Bengals are healthy, I think we are head and shoulders better than the Kansas City Chiefs, and I think we've proven it time and time again. Now, here's what I'll say about this. You guys did knock us out of the playoffs last year. I'm not, remiss to that. I know that happened. You know how I know it happened? Because me and Evan and Logan were inside Arrowhead Stadium. We saw it happen. We saw it happen. But I also remember something else, guys. Here's what I remember. And let's go down memory lane because clearly you guys have memory loss. But I'll tell you this. Here's what I remember. I remember Joe Burrow throwing a bomb of a pass down the field to Jamar Chase on a fourth or third, and it was a fourth down and 13 or something like that, or whatever it was. And I remember the Bengals then going on to score. And then I remember Kansas City Chiefs fans starting to leave, saying that they've seen this before because it's the same thing that happened the year prior. That's what I remember. I remember that. Now, the Bengals went on to lose that. It was the botched, Joseph Asai tackle on the sideline, kick game-winning field goal. You guys walk off, and we walk out of Arrowhead Stadium to who day, we day. I remember all of that. But let's not act like you guys haven't struggled against the Bengals. Let's not act like the Bengals have not been a thorn in your side. And you guys are so soft. Excuse me. You guys are so soft. Competition breeds success. The AFC North is the toughest competition in the National Football League. We don't have cakewalk schedules. We don't have cakewalk division. We don't. You play the best of the best. And most of the teams that are in the AFC playoff picture, they certainly revolve around, guess what? The AFC North schedule. They do. The teams in the AFC North. The Ravens are always in the playoffs. The Steelers are mostly always in the playoffs. The Browns have just now started to come to the party. And so have the Bengals. So I feel like every time the Bengals play the team in the division, it's like a playoff game. Because those are the tiers that these teams are on. And you guys are so soft. You guys get so worked up. And for what? Celebrate your championship. Be happy about your championship. But know one thing. Joe Burrow's coming back. The Bengals will be back. And I just hope that your disrespect is just as loud as the respect that the Bengals will get from you guys this football season. Because when the Bengals are healthy, and again, I will acknowledge you guys beat us in the championship. I mean, the AFC playoffs last year, the AFC championship. But let's remember this. Starting left tackle for that game was Jackson Carman.
Yeah.
Starting left tackle for that game was Jackson Carman. Max Sharping was the starting right guard. Alex Kappa, our starting right guard, hurt. Jonah Williams, starting left tackle, hurt. Makeshift offensive line. Somehow we beat the Buffalo Bills. Don't know how we did it. But guess what? It proved that you can't line Max Sharping or whoever up against Chris Jones because he's that much of a beast. See, we can acknowledge that. And I feel like the Bengals have shown you guys respect. I don't feel like you guys have shown the Bengals respect, but you know what? Where I'm from, we rather earn it. You know what? We rather take it. And I have a funny feeling the Bengals are going to do exactly that. So Kansas City Chiefs fans, I promised you guys that I would acknowledge you. Those of you who are in my DMs, I promised I would acknowledge you on the start of the show. Here it is. Head and shoulders, Bengals, Chiefs. I take the Bengals each and every goddamn time because I think the Bengals have the better football team. Let's move on and say what we got to say. And yes, somebody reminded me that Adeniji was also playing. Come on, man. Come on. Let's not forget the offensive line the Bengals went to the Super Bowl with and beat you guys. Mostly every single starting offensive lineman from that Super Bowl team and from that team beat it was out of the league right now, but that's the starting makeshift offensive line that beat the Kansas City Chiefs. And also, I want to just remind people as well why I'm still going on this tangent. T. Higgins didn't play after the first or second drive because he had hamstring tightness. But when it stacks up, the chips are on the table, and we're healthy, and you guys are healthy, you guys ain't on our level. We'll leave it at that. But keeping the conversation rolling, guys, I promised our player spotlight this week would be Juice. I promised it would be Cam, Taylor, Britt. I've been talking a lot and a little bit of a drink really quickly. So with that being said, Evan, I want to get your opinion on Juice this season, man, and what your expectations are for him going forward. Sorry to put you on the spot right away. I know this was a little bit abrupt. I had to go on a little tangent real quick.
That's all right, man.
But the floor is yours, my man.
Yeah, obviously Cam Taylor Britt was dealing a little bit with some nagging injuries that were going on this season. I think that really affected him, and also kind of playing with some of these younger guys in the secondary. Everybody was just trying to figure it out a little bit. And I think everybody got it like one time or another, really. But overall, like you didn't see necessarily a giant leap for him, and I think part of that was because of the injuries, working his way back into things, and just kind of the general kind of mishaps of the defense that were plaguing them the entire season. But he still just allowed a 67.6 passer rating when targeted. That's pretty damn good, man. He only allowed 2 touchdowns in his coverage, had 4 interceptions and 5 pass breakups. He was a big part of where the ball production comes from the Bengals. And if we remember, we've been just crying out for this for years because there have been solid corners, but there wasn't always that ball production. And that was the exciting thing about guys like William Jackson, right? Is you had that guy who could be that ball hawk, who could make plays on the ball. And nothing against DJ Turner, who I'm very high on, and I think obviously had some ups and downs in his rookie season, but he's not going to make as many plays on the ball because of his stature, because of his length. He's going to be in good position. He's going to get some breakups, but he's not necessarily going to have the same ability to play the ball in the air as a guy like Cam Taylor Britt. So I feel like he's a very important, aggressive part of your defense. And I talked a little bit about it last week and how the pass rush can help speed things up, can help the secondary to play more aggressive, because then those double moves and those long developing routes, you don't have to worry about them as much if you can trust your defense to get there, to put that pressure on the quarterback. If you can trust that and speed up the quarterback's internal clock and feel that, Cam Taylor Britt is definitely one of those guys who can play aggressive, undercut routes, try and make plays on the ball to generate some really positive outcomes for the team that can be huge. We know how important turnover margin is for winning a game, and how strongly that correlates. So him being able to make those plays on the ball, get those pass breakups, continue to be that ball production that the Bengals have needed sorely in the secondary, because we know until last year, sacks and interceptions the last couple of years have been down for the Bengals. And it was a big part of the thing was bend, don't break, right? Get them into field goal range. Don't give up a touchdown and then let them score points via field goal or make it tough on them. And they had just a lot more of the fumbles, interceptions, sacks last year. And you definitely, it's hard to replicate something that's so random like that, but you definitely want to keep going. And Cam Taylor Britt is definitely going to be able to do that. He's a guy who definitely has that aggressive mentality as well in the run game. And though it doesn't always work out, and there are some missed tackles that go along with that, 10 missed tackles on just 48 tackles last season, that's kind of like the nature of kind of what you get from him. And when you have corners who are good in coverage, but also willing to be willing tacklers, right? That's almost kind of the above the baseline. That's above average. And you can't always find corners that are willing to come down and tackle and mix things up. So I like that for him. I know there's going to be a lot of talk about how you're moving pieces around to reshape the secondary, right? Maybe Dax Hill, if things don't work out at free safety. Maybe he comes down in the box, plays a little more on the tight ends, kind of uses his abilities there. But if not, you're looking at like, hey, Mike Hilton's getting older, and you don't feel great about putting DJ Turner there, though he's a willing run defender. He does not quite have the same aggression and hitting power that Cam Taylor Britt does. Cam Taylor Britt can do a little bit as a blitzer too. So if you're talking about how can the Bengals maneuver things a little bit to try and get their best players on the field, maybe Cam Taylor Britt finds a way to be involved in the box and the slot more and get him near the line of scrimmage and really just let him wreak havoc with his athleticism. So overall, I think he was still good like he was his rookie year. I don't think there was a giant step forward, but I think it was largely due to injuries. I think he had a lot of up and down play, but part of that too could be attributed to him believing that he has safety help at certain points and letting up some of those bigger plays, or like we said, the missed tackles. And I think those will improve with time, with experience, with feel for the game, and also with other guys who are veterans, maybe in that secondary, or just guys like Jordan Battle taking a step forward in the sense that they can help align everybody and get them right. So I'm very optimistic about what Cam Taylor Britt can be for this Bengals secondary in the future. Sorry to go on a long tangent there.
No, you're good. You said a lot of good things, but the thing that when we first drafted Cam that Evan brought up, one of my the way I kind of seen his career playing out was kind of in that nickel role because he's so explosive, he's so physical. That was kind of always my dream scenario for him. It was awesome. He gets to learn behind Mike Hill and sweet, all this fun stuff, and then he continued to play more and more and more and more outside, pretty much primarily outside since he's been here, and he's been really good at it. Again, maybe that's not necessarily where he ends up long term, but he's just one of those players that you just feel confident in. He's confident in himself. He has, for lack of a better term, he has that juice in his game. He's always going to be around the football. He's exciting. He's energetic. Wherever he's on the football field,
Describing me.
he's going to make plays. And I don't really care where it is. That's a good thing about him. He's a good football player and he loves the game. And I think to go off one of Evan's points again, when the pass rush, when all that stuff develops, when they can start getting to the quarterback a little quicker, this secondary that the Bengals currently have in place is going to feast when they can play fast. We drafted these athletes so they can play fast, but you take away that aggressiveness and that fast pace of play and just a true ability to use your athleticism when you have to cover for 4 or 5 seconds, when you really have to sit back and be patient, and read things and do all this stuff. The Bengals have built the secondary to play fast, to play physical, to play aggressive. But again, when you're sitting back there and you have to cover for so long, it's hard for them to truly play to their strengths. So I think Cam Taylor is going to be one of those players, especially as you see the pass rush develop. He can continue that ascension and just, a really good cornerback one, whether it's going to be outside, inside, whatever. He's always going to be a guy that makes an impact and plays winning football. And at the end of the day, that's the kind of guy you want on your team.
I agree. I like Cam Taylor, Britt. He grew on me, obviously. I thought that this is a guy that needed to get better in pass coverage. He did that. I always felt he was a short tackler. He's a guy that plays hard through the whistle. He's a guy that is just I think the fundamentals obviously are something that will, as long as he continues to work on that, we'll see a steady improvement there. Yeah. You got to feel good about the Bengals defensive back room for the future. I personally love DJ Turner.
Yeah.
Or what do they call him? Juan Drago? Is that his name?
That's his name. That is his actual name.
Really?
Yeah. It goes by DJ.
Did not know that, actually. That's new. Anyway, I genuinely did not know that. That's actually crazy. But he that's a guy that I'm really excited about. I'm excited about his future. I think that him and Cam Taylor Britt can make a very good tandem. Shout out my guy, Dame, from the Draft Network. He's the first person before anybody was on Cam Taylor Britt. He was on Cam Taylor Britt. And him and I spoke at the Combine last year, which I'm excited about. Me and the boys will be at the Combine this year, Wednesday, doing State of the Jungle live from there. But Dame was the first person to let me know about Cam Taylor Britt. I remember he reached out. He said, just so you know, man, you got yourself an absolute dog. Cam Taylor Britt is one of my guys. So I'm hoping to, obviously have Dame on the sit down Malik Wright sometime this draft week. I mean, this Combine week. And we could chop it up about potential prospects that he likes or fits he sees for the Bengals, as well as my guy, Trevor. I always pronounce his name correctly.
Trevor Sikkema.
There we go. I'm excited. I'm excited about Cam Taylor Britt's overall potential with the Cincinnati Bengals and seeing him to continue to evolve. I do agree with you, Logan. At first, when the Bengals did draft him, I thought he might have been better suited for the slot role because you thought maybe he was a little bit undersized on the outside, but his physicality makes up for a lot of it, I would say. And he is somebody who I would consider a ball hawk. He takes the chances. One thing I like is a defensive back that is willing to take chances.
Yeah, he's a little crazy.
I love a defensive back that is willing to take chances. I don't like guys. I like guys who play safe, but you try in the National Football League, especially in today's day and age, you have to try to steal possessions. And that's sort of what Evan talked about in the Bengals sacks and turnovers sort of have been down this year. You hope that another year in loose system, another year of familiarity with another year being healthy, hopefully. That's what we're hoping for Cam Taylor Britt. He can stay healthy because he has dealt with nicks and injuries. But if he's able to stay healthy, man, could you imagine the leaps and bounds that this defensive back room could take? There's one guy in the defensive back room who I'm looking at squarely, and I'm saying you need to improve, but we're not going to get there because we're going to talk about him someday in one of these player spotlights. But that being said, I really, really do like Cam Taylor Britt. Just want to see him healthy, want to see what him and Turner can become. I love the evolution of Turner. Maybe I should have made him our player of the spotlight this week because that's a guy that I believe can be the Bengals' best cornerback on the roster. So really, really pumped up about that. But anyway, want to keep the conversation going. And on that conversation, I want to talk about the future slot wide receiver for the Bengals. Obviously Tyler Boyd is projected to not be back here in Cincinnati.
Yep.
I guess there are a few options you could look at. And I think the options we're looking at, we maybe haven't been considering someone. Those options we have been considering are Yoshi, right? And Charlie Jones. But there is a guy who has proven he could perform well in the Bengals offense. We've gotten some great games out of him. We've seen him perform beyond expectations. I think Marissa knows where I'm going because she's laughing, or maybe because she's when we heard me say it before. But Trent Irwin, I feel like he's a guy that's not being talked about here. He's a guy that is one of those guys. Because remember, you don't need your star wide receiver to be some superstar. You don't need your slot receiver to be some superstar.
Mhm.
You need your slot receiver to be shorthanded. You need your slot receiver to be consistent. That's what you need. I think Trent Irwin's thing is we haven't seen the opportunities consistently for him. But I can tell you one thing, when we have seen him, he's played well. That's just me. I'm really curious to hear what you guys think about Trent Irwin potentially being the guy of slot receiver for the Bengals. I'm not saying that he's not he's not somebody who I would start over Charlie Jones if Charlie Jones took the next step, but he is a guy that you could certainly rely on in a pinch and if you needed to. Because I really think it's going to be a situation slot receiver by committee type thing.
Absolutely.
That's what I think.
Absolutely.
But my thing I would say is whoever the tight end is too can also take some of those reps away and make life a little bit easy. I don't know why you guys are saying, nah, no, not at all. Come on, guys. Like let's be realistic. Let's put our bias aside. That's what we do on the show. We dissect everything. You can't tell me, you can't say nah, no to Trent Irwin. Trent Irwin, this is a guy who has performed well. Like yes, he not? He has performed well. This is a guy who filled in for Jamar Chase when he was injured in that spot and did so admirably. He did so. And that's a spot where I don't even think he's strong at. But Trent Irwin 100% has earned himself a spot to be at least in the rotation of a slot wide receiver. I don't think that's crazy.
He's solid, and he gives you that added dimension of like he can fill in for you on special teams if you need him to. He can play in the slot. He can play outside. But like you said, he's just a veteran sure hand thing because that's what you're looking for is something break glass in case of emergency that Charlie Jones is not ready, right?
Yeah,
and like you
that's
said,
the issue.
I think the best way is like you said, okay, we don't want to just, all right, Charlie Jones, you're playing 800 snaps and we're going out here in 11 personnel every snap. It's going to be Jamar Chase. You're going to move into the slot. And here comes T and Iosivas on the boundary, right? And then there's going to be plays, like you said, where, okay, T off the field or Jamar off the field and Yoshi on there and Charlie Jones in the slot, or insert tight end, Mike Gesicki, Noah Fant, Gerald Everett, whatever you want to put in there as, like you said, another kind of that slot receiving option. So you don't have to necessarily burden Trent Taylor or Charlie Jones with, hey, you guys are going to have to play 400 or 500 snaps in the slot and be damn good at it. You can kind of share that responsibility around, which I think is going to be the way they need to go. And I think that people talk about how deep the talent is at receiver in this draft. And if you really feel the need to, with T. Higgins coming, they know more about what they plan for the future are, right?
Yeah.
But you can get some good insurance in the third, fourth round, like you did with previous receivers that you have turned into good players. And you can find a good player there still where you can't at other positions, right? Where we said tackle, defensive line, corner. These are ones you got to hit early, right? And we probably all imagine they will. And so when you're looking at the later rounds saying, where can we just find a talented player who can contribute this year and beyond? I think mid-round wide receiver is kind of a sneaky
especially
play there.
Slot receiver.
Right.
It's
So
very
if
easy
they
to
have,
find those.
maybe they get one of those guys who is kind of that 4-year player who's played outside, played inside a lot like Charlie Jones.
Yeah.
Who they say, hey, just a little added insurance. Plus we get the upside of, hey, T. Higgins walks. Our rotation isn't completely screwed. We stay cheap at wide receiver when we're about to give a ton of money to Jamar Chase.
Yes.
And then you can spend it other places in your roster, right? So that's one way, because wide receiver is one of those more expensive positions overall.
Yeah.
Because top tier market running back money is $15 million. Top tier wide receiver money is $30 million, right? So there is a little bit of context that needs to go there at certain positions. But yeah, I'm a fan of kind of committee approach for that.
Yeah, I think that's almost just how it has to be. And I think that's probably the best route to take. It just allows you to become more versatile, allows you to do a bunch of different things, show a bunch of different looks. You know, even if some of them is just for show or whatever, but just having so many different alignments, personnel groupings, just automatically throws in another wrinkle to the offense. And as many little wrinkles as you can have in an offense, the better. But the whole point about the thing, I guess the whole frustrating part about the discussion is, you know, everybody just this time, or I guess last year after the draft, everybody just assumed Right now, we would just be talking about how Charlie Jones is a slot receiver. Charlie Jones is a slot receiver.
Right.
But unfortunately, we never played Charlie Jones. Charlie Jones was never on the field. We drafted a 24, going to be 25, whatever, however old he is already, and we know nothing about him. That's the frustrating thing.
The injury really,
yeah,
really
and that's the frustrating part about it is, again, like Charlie Jones is a fine pick. We expected him to see some time here and there, see what he's like, so we know what we have for this situation. So we know if we need to draft a receiver.
This is
so
why
we
we
need
were
to
all
sign one.
this is why we were all clamoring when people were like, "Why are you trying to bench Tyler Boyd for Charlie?" We were trying to bench Tyler Boyd for Charlie
We just need
Jones.
a little something.
But
like
when he was back healthy, what was that? Week 9, 10?
Yeah,
and then what did he play over the next 5
not
weeks?
much,
Like
and then
10 snaps.
couple snaps at the end.
There was a game where he had 0 snaps.
Yeah.
And they were, remember the game they were down? It was like Trent Irwin was their primary outside receiver. You telling me you couldn't find snaps
and he
for him
wasn't.
on there?
I mean, and not that he was obviously. He was pretty decent in the time he played. I mean, he had a punt return touchdown. Now that's a receiving, that shows once you get the ball in the kid's hands, he can make something happen. And I think, that's just what frustrates me about the whole situation, is just because knowing what you had in Troy Jones last year could have been a goal down the stretch, because it's not like Tyler Boyd was playing out of his mind. It's not like we were super healthy at, the receiver position. So, like I said, it would have made everything this offseason a little easier. Maybe Charlie Jones played one game and went off, and now we know, okay, we don't need a receiver. We can
just get
spend
more
money here.
information. You just know
and now
more about
we
what
have
you're
so
looking at.
much less information about it. So it's hard to have a feeling about Charlie Jones in any way, shape, or form. But to answer the question, I think the best way to go about it is the committee approach. Let everybody, flash your talents inside and just kind of keep moving it around, mixing it around, and really just seeing what sticks.
So I'm smiling at Evan over here because
what I do this time.
There's, I've been very bullish on the whole wide receiver drafting, but there's a guy, man. If there's one thing I can point to this Bengals offense, I would say that we need speed. We need speed.
Need for speed.
We do have a need for speed, like the video game.
I love it.
And you know what? I'll say there's a guy from the University of Alabama that I really like. Stop it. I'm smiling right now. No, it's not a Troy Franklin. But I would say Jermaine Burton.
You're gonna have to get him in the second round.
That's
the problem. That's the problem.
Yeah.
Because
but if you're thinking on that type of trajectory,
I love it, because now I underrated Jermaine Burton. I did, right? And then I remember we went to go look at the stats and kind of do a deep dive for the Georgia-Alabama game.
Yeah.
And holy shit, dude, that guy just produces at a level like higher than just anyone really should. Like, he is just so solid in every area of the field, the release package, averaging like 3.5 yards route per run, almost 4, like deep threat, everything. I love it. But at the same time, like what I just talked about, right? I can find a receiver that might be 85 or 90% of a Jermaine Burton at that point, but the defensive line, both on the interior and the edge,
100%, and
the tackle. And on top of that, I saw one of our very astute viewers point out that cornerback is low key, like a need that we just keep forgetting. And Daniel brought it up the other day, said it wouldn't be a flashy pick. I disagree, because let's say the tackles are off the board, right? The tackle run. You know where I'm going?
Don't get me started on a corner.
So the tackles are off the board. Brock Bowers is off the board. Johnny Newton's off the board. If you're sitting there and Terry and Arnold is staring you at the face at 18, that dude was so fucking good.
Respectfully, I'm not drafting a cornerback, though. I'm not in the first round.
Okay, so here's the problem, though. Who is your other starting outside corner right now? Because you have Cam Taylor-Britt, DJ Turner, and Mike Hilton.
Yeah.
That's scary, because you have DJ Ivey is next.
Well,
who got hurt towards ACL.
Right.
The Bengals gave an extension to Jalen Davis because they view him. Just hear me out.
Yeah. A 2-year, like $1.5 million deal.
He's still a guy that who got snaps last year that they do value at the
slot
cornerback position.
Again, boundary.
Right. But
right.
At least what I understand in Lou's system, I can definitely see them picking up one of those veteran cast-off type guys.
Right.
That's just their MO. That's just their MO, right? Like, where
but that's the thing. How deep are you at your? So you've got 2 slot corners.
Yeah.
You have 2 boundary corners and DJ Ivy, who is coming off a 7th round pick, who's coming off a major injury. You have no boundary depth right now. You don't.
Mhm.
Even if you do have, let's say DJ Ivy's back healthy, I know he looked good in very limited snaps last year,
Very
but
limited.
like you can't just say, "Oh, Cam Taylor Britt goes down," like DJ Ivy's
No,
starting for a game,
I'm
right?
there with you. I just think that
And what's your plan past this year? Like you said,
Mm.
he's
100%.
Jalen Davis has 1 year left on his deal. Mike Hilton, 1 year left. Like cornerback is a
I mean, we
need
could talk about
now
corners.
and the future. So I understand it's not a popular pick. I'm sure everybody's sick and tired of first round corners with Dre Kirkpatrick and William Jackson and safeties and everything else.
Listen,
It's a
I'm
premier
sure
position,
everybody's
man.
sore about it, but
The thing
best
is,
player available,
could-
right?
I mean, like obviously everybody's board's different too.
My board
Everybody's
is definitely different.
everybody's
Fine,
ranks
yeah.
are different. But if we're really talking about corners and people that fit. I mean, I know it's gonna sound a little bit weird too, but I'm all in on Cooper DeJean also. He's a guy who can play outside, he can play safety, he can play slot. And if for a guy looking to help fit this year to kind of fill in all of those roles, he can go play outside. He's also probably the best punt returner in the draft as well. Obviously, these are situations that we're just playing through. It's not like, oh, go draft a corner, go draft a corner, go draft a corner. But if we really do think it's a possibility, there's some good ones.
I was talking with someone the other day. They say, Malik, State of the Jungle, you speak very factual. You don't really speak with hypotheticals as much as we'd like you to. So I'm going to turn over a new leaf. I'm going to start speaking in hypotheticals. I'm going to start.
Let me pose this hypothetical.
Let me pose. Maybe the Bengals are trade for Trent Williams, right? Maybe I'll
I like some constraints. It's like a little puzzle. I'll figure it out.
But I was told that, so I am going to start speaking more hypotheticals because people want to hear that. They still want to hear about the possibilities,
yeah,
right?
Right.
You guys know me as respectfully, not to brag or boast, but as someone who covers the NFL and is an NFL insider, I typically like to deal with facts. I don't really like to deal with rumors. Even on the comment section, I saw somebody say
it's easy to be like the Bengals would never do that, so let's
Yeah.
not explore that.
they're like, "What do you think about the rumor of Metabuke coming to the Bengals?" I'm like, rumor? That's
What
a rumor?
I haven't heard that.
I haven't heard that.
I love Justin
I
Matt.
saw
I
people.
heard that.
Here's what I saw. I saw the dude who's like 6'6", and if you meet him in real life, Jeremy Fowler from ESPN, he puts out his potential free agency fits, and I saw him say Matabuke to the Bengals makes sense.
Yeah.
That's what I saw. I didn't see anything as a rumor. I think people are now viewing an article of hypothetical as a potential rumor.
Exactly
I would not say that, guys. The Bengals are one of those teams that stick by the book. They don't really like to dabble or talk about their interest level. I don't know a lot more about what Bengal stuff and just NFL stuff in general. I heard some interesting stuff today throughout the combine week, but I don't think it's just that cut and dry. The Ravens will just allow Justin Matabuke or Matabuke. What do you say, Matabuke? Matabuke just walk and certainly just walk to a division rival.
Mm-hmm.
I don't see that. He is a guy that is going like just as much as we all see his stock rising and his trajectory rising in the league. A lot of teams see his trajectory rising and his stock rising in the National Football League. And you got to think the Ravens are going to try to do everything in their power to probably keep that guy if they can.
Yeah, and the tag is a thing for other teams too, not just us.
Yeah.
That's the
I think
disappointing
people
thing about
forget
this.
that.
Yeah. So, like, obviously, we've talked a lot to this point about potential free agent targets, and we're probably just going to have to rehash that discussion toward the
Next
middle
few
of
weeks.
March is when the tag
about 3
deadline
weeks.
is. Yeah. So, once that happens, maybe I talked a lot about like adding a blue chip player in the trenches, but the two, I would say, blue chip defensive tackles that are out there outside of Chris Jones, who I'm just not even considering, is Christian Wilkins and Justin Matabuke, who are also prime tag candidates. Now, like you said, I think the Ravens and Justin Matabuke have a good relationship. I think they would rather, pay their defensive line. I think they value that a lot. I look at the Dolphins and how much they're paying Jalen Ramsey and Teron Armstead and Xavier Howard and all these guys who are 30 million plus against the cap. And I wonder when you're so strained because of what you've done with Tyreek Hill, because of what you've done with all these guys, because of how much money you've invested in these 30 plus year old guys, you have a lot of money tied up. And now you got to figure out quarterback too. And this is one of those things where you don't want to let a really good player walk. And that's what the tag is for. But I haven't looked too closely to figure out where does 23 or 24 million dollars come from for the Dolphins to pay this guy. And I remember right at the end of the season when their GM was like, yeah, we'll see what happens. He's earned the right to be a free agent is what he said. That's not usually it's we love this guy. He's played great for us. We're going to do everything we can to, feel things out and whatever. Even a little bit of GM speak, right? Play both sides. Like, we'd love to have him back. We're going to work hard. But to say he's earned the right to be a free agent when asked about it, it was just a weird phrasing to me. So that's what kind of like with that plus the cap stuff,
could you imagine
plus the quarterback question.
Could you imagine being in marriage and saying, well, you've earned the right to be single? Like, it's basically the same thing, right? For
right. Like, someone's like, weird. Hey, like, I want to kind of make this work. Can we, stay the course? And you're like, oh, well, you've earned the right to, see what's out there. That's a weird.
Yeah.
Right. So like, again, or like if you tell your business partner, like, hey, time to re-up on our deal. And then he just looks at you and goes, you've earned the right to go talk about what else is out there. It's like, that's a weird phrasing, right? Like that's just weird phrasing. So that's why Christian Wilkins is my most likely not tagged, maybe potential guy, but at the same time, maybe they just tag
I'd
Adam Walker.
splurge on Christian Wilkins.
I would too.
So whatever.
It's tough because if you tag T and then you buy Christian Wilkins, right? That's $43 million out of your $59 million in cap, right? So then let's say they save $8 million for rookies and whatever else they like to do, right? Then you've got like, okay, we just need to sign like a bunch of $3, $4, $5 million guys, right? Maybe
money goes by quick, man.
But then that's when it's like, hey, if you're going to do that, you need to trade up into the second and third round and get these top 100 picks because now you need guys who can contribute this year. Your cutesy 6th and 7th round picks that you hope pan out for you a little bit, that are a tremendous dart throw comparatively to the guys who are in the top 100. And everybody keeps saying there's this drop off after that third round, right? This is definitely a year to kind of gather some of those late round resources and try and get quality players that can contribute. And I know Malik's over here shaking his head.
No, that's not that. I just see a comment.
And I understand people being like the Bengals aren't going to trade up and give away a 4th round pick to move up in the second or from the third to the. I get that. I do, but I'm just saying this is what I would do if we went the route of you sign T, you sign Christian, and you have limited resources for free agency.
Okay. Yep. So I saw somebody putting Wilkins' agent is Mulgeta. If we can't extend T, I don't see Wilkins sign. Let me just nip this in the bud here.
Are we just going to mix everybody who's ever represented by David Mulgeta?
I think I'm sort of responsible for the discourse around David Mulgeta. Let me be very, very clear. Christian Wilkins and T. Higgins are two separate things, right? Yeah. I mean, the issue that comes with the David Mulgeta representation is not the fact that you just don't want to negotiate with Dave Mulgeta. That's not what it is. The discourse that comes with it is this is what is behind. T. Higgins has been injured almost every single season he's been with the Cincinnati Bengals. Matters. Dave Mulgeta and athletes first. It's important let's not just bully Dave Mulgeta. Let's talk about athletes first, Dave Mulgeta. At David Mulgeta, athletes first, they always try to set record-breaking contracts for their clients. They are very intentional with the people that they take on as clients. So they're not going to take on a guy that is on a practice squad if they know they can't get them out because they pride themselves on being able to keep that, that mantra.
Premium talent.
Premium talent. And they want to make sure they're getting the best of the best, right? It's the same representation that Justin Simmons has had, which is why he got franchise tagged a couple of years in Denver before he actually got that big deal from them. That doesn't typically happen. Usually it's a franchise tag 1 year, then you walk. Or you signed with the team long term. He got franchise tag 2 years in a row. So the thing with Dave Mulgeta and T. Higgins is because T. Higgins has that representation, T. Higgins has been told for 4 years, you could be a number one, you could be a number one, you could be a number one. The fact of the matter is the numbers. He has played great in spurts and played like a number one wide receiver, but the injury concern is real, and the numbers don't represent a guy that could be making upwards to close to 30 million as to opposed to other people. But if you have the chance to get into free agency, you can get pushed. And people say, hey, I'll offer you this. No, I'll offer you that. And then that's how you can exceed that type of value. Yeah. So when you're a guy like T. Higgins, who's been told for 4 years, you can be a number one wide receiver, you change representation, you join athletes first, and then you finally have the opportunity to become a number one wide receiver. Of course, your agent, Dave Mulgeta, injury aside, is going to try to secure that for you. Christian Wilkins is a guy that has played like a premium talent consecutively and does not come with the injury bag, history wise, and probably could command whatever that might look like. So again, it's every situation is a lot different. Let's not just throw Christian Wilkins in the same circle as T. Higgins. The reason why we have had issues with Dave Mulgeta in Athletes First with the Bengals is because we just had a guy leave Cincinnati in Jesse Bates, right? He's a guy that did not play like a premium safety for 2 years in Cincinnati and got franchise tagged that 1 year, if you will. And played great in the playoffs, finally hit open market and was able to secure the bag and played out of his mind for the Atlanta Falcons. It seems like he was a great get for the Atlanta Falcons. But again, the Bengals have to see a player play up to that level and be healthy while doing so, right?
That context is so important.
It's so important. So I don't want us to just think that, oh, damn, if we draft a player and then they sign with the Athlete First, oh, hell. Could you imagine if Joe Burrow was signed with Athletes First, Joe Burrow still would have got his contract. Simple as that.
Yeah. That's the part of it, right? Is like what you talked about with, on top of the injury concerns, Christian Wilkins has played 700 plus snaps his first 2 years rotating in, and then 1,960 the last two, has steadily improved each year. He had 58 defensive stops, not last season, but the previous season. To put that in perspective, DJ Reader in his last like fully healthy season, I guess, was 2021. He had 29. So we're talking 29 to 58. That's how good Christian Wilkins was. And so that's what you're talking about, that level of production plus all the injury concerns with T, right? The other part of that is there's 7 or 8 receivers making $24+ million, right? There's a handful, I think 4 or 5 that are making 26 plus up to 30. Those are all, a lot of those mid-tier contracts around 25 or older by a year or two. So there's a leg to stand on for T's to agent to be like, these are not recent. I want more than that for adjusting for the market. I want closer to 30. I want 27, 28, like Cooper Kupp and Devontae Adams and all these other guys are making, because they signed those deals 2 years ago and he's still a number one. So he's not going to get 30, but they want 28 versus the asking price for a Wilkins or a Matabuke is more likely to be top of market, is more 23, 24 million, not 28, 30. And like you said, so you're getting less money that you have to commit on top of the fact that you're getting a player who's been on the field, extremely productive at every step. So there's a little more, it's at a better cost, and we're willing to do it.
And I think I don't want to say the biggest, but one of the biggest arguments, at least to me, is obviously the Athletes First thing is always going to be a factor, but it's not necessarily that he's there or the Bengals. The Bengals wouldn't care to pay T. Higgins, and I'm sure they're still pretty comfortable with it. But the main fact, it's not a T. Higgins thing. It has everything to do with Jamar Chase. T. Higgins is going to get X amount of dollars, and he's going to deserve every amount of them. But is it smart to build your football team by allocating $70 million to 2 receivers when in this example,
there was no Jamar and you felt a little bit,
T would get his money, nobody would be questions asked, $70 million, whatever. But now you have $70 million. This is just a random number between Jamar Chase and an elite defensive tackle. That's just obviously common sense says a way better way to spend a football team instead of just spending so much money on one position group.
So, I mean, it's, I don't know. I feel like the whole T. Higgins, Dave Mulgeta thing is very just weird. But I'll just say this, I do think it would behoove the Cincinnati Bengals to look at everything, especially when you're talking about drafting a guy. You got to think about the future. So that's why I brought up a guy like Jermaine Burton, who I think could do great in this offense. But again, the draft has to shake that way. It has to make sense, right? You obviously don't want to overreach, and you definitely don't want to run the risk of missing out on a guy that you really like. I would say this is a deep wide receiver class.
Extremely.
I feel like this is a deep wide receiver class. So you're definitely going to have your pick of a litter at some point or another. So if you want to dip into the wide receiver action, I would be okay with drafting 2 defensive tackles on the first and second round just to shore that up. I would be okay with that. So I saw somebody say draft Devondre Sweat, then draft Jerzon Newton. Now that has to shake out that way, obviously, right? It has to shake out that way for it to make sense. But that brings me to our next topic. But before we jump into that, make sure you guys do me a favor. Give this video a like, subscribe to the YouTube channel, turn on post notifications so you guys don't miss when we go live or upload content from the First Star Logistics studio. But in keeping with that same conversation, guys, what is your blueprint to the Bengals winning a championship?
I got to ask for a qualifier here. Okay. Is this playing by Bengals rules, or is this like,
no. We need to be, hypothetical.
Right. But we don't want to go full Madden on this, right? We're not trading.
We're going full Madden.
Well, we're not trading our first round picks and everything.
Why not? Why not? You're thinking like the Bengals.
Semi-logical.
Why not?
I was going to say, how grounded in reality?
What if the Rams call you and say, well, hey, give us your first round pick for Aaron Donald?
Well, yeah, then I'm doing it. But like,
So,
again, like, so I got, there's too many possibilities. My brain's going to be overwhelmed. I'm not going to play by the Bengals rules in the sense that I'm going to leave like $9 million in cap space. I'm going to spend the money I have. But
Yeah.
I'm going to play in a little bit, 1 foot in the reality kind of sandbox for me. I don't know how
I like
Logan
it.
approached
I
it.
like it.
Okay, so I guess I'll kick us off.
Kick us off, baby.
So my pathway is kind of, you're bringing back T Higgins, right, on the tag. That's kind of what's happening now. Tag and trade T Higgins for, second round pick, and then free up that money. And Christian Wilkins is a free agent and doesn't get tagged. Okay, this scenario is different, but I'm going to assume that Wilkins gets tagged because I expect that. I'm going to assume T Higgins comes back and stays and plays with the team because I expect that. So playing with those rules, we got about $59 million in cap space right now. I saw Andrei Parada, good friend of many on Bengals Twitter and who have different shows all over the place, talk about how the Bengals could restructure Orlando Brown's cap number or his contract to create an extra $4.5 million in cap space. I'm going to do that. I'm going to use it. And I'm going to go right up against it. So here we go. All right. Bringing back T Higgins for our franchise tag, $20 million. We're going to fix the D-line right the fuck now.
Okay.
Sheldon Rankins, $10 million a year. Grover Stewart from the Colts. And I know people are like, Grover Stewart, he's 30, whatever else. Man's coming off some PEDs. All right. He's ready. Okay. He's good. He's healthy. He's strong.
He's been really good in the league.
He has been so good just so good for like 8 years. And he can help fill that middle of your defense, fill the reader role a little bit, and just give you more bodies on there. And now here's my kind of upside swing is Maurice Hurst. $2 million a year is his projected. I'm using all the projected cap numbers by Brad Spielberger. Maurice Hurst was really good as a pass rusher, and he's dealt with injuries where he had, I think it was a calf injury that hurt him about 2 years ago, and then he tore his biceps just right off the gate. And like, that's just a freak injury, right? Like that happens sometimes, right? Torn pec, torn biceps. That's not, oh man, he's going to be a shell of himself, right? So I'm willing to take that as like, hey, you just be that backup guy that we can throw in there, rotate our D-line, keep fresh, just be a pass rush threat. I like that a lot. I think he has more upside than a lot of these guys who've just been kind of floating around the back end of the D rotation, as well as guys like Zach Carter, just not interested in the Zach Carter show anymore. So there we go. 3 interior defensive line. Boom. That BJ Hill, you're rolling. You can draft the guy still if you want to. If a guy falls in your lap and you're fine, you're not overcommitted. Maurice Hurst is making $2 million. You're fine. It's not precluding you from drafting anybody. There we go. D-line fixed. Okay. Gonna bring our old friend Jermaine Illuminor, $7 million a year. I wanted to try and get Michael and Wendu, but hey, the cap numbers are tough, man. $15 million there. We got some other holes we got to fill. Free agencies for holes. Drafting is for getting good players. Remember this, all right? I'm going to fill every fucking hole on this team. Tackle, we're good.
Gonna what?
We're going to get Gesicki, your boy, in here. I know you want Noah Fant. He's looking at like $8-9 million a year, and that's just, I want some other stuff.
He gets that,
but yeah, no, if he's making 5, we can talk. But if Mike Gesicki, again, I said I'm going off these projections. We got Mike Gesicki coming in for $2 million. He's going to fill in that slot receiver. Still doesn't stop you from drafting a tight end. Doesn't stop you from signing another guy like Adam Troutman, Austin Hooper type to help fill in that rotation. You can bring back Drew Sample if that, the Bengals are just so inclined to do so. So now we've fixed. T. Higgins is back. Interior D-line is fixed. Right tackle is solved. Tight end, you got bodies there that you can rely on. It can be pass catching threats. It's easier to find the blockers, right? So we got $51 million total there in cap. So we've got about $12 million left. And what we're going to do with that, we're going to get some veterans in for the secondary, right? We're going to go sign a guy like a Deshaun Elliott or a Chauncey Gardner Jr. for $5 million. And we're going to let them fill in, play that safety if you need them, play that nickel if you need them. They all have that versatility of inside the box, outside the box. You get everything from that. You just get a veteran body in there to where if you don't feel comfortable where you are at the midway point of the season with where Dax Hill's doing, or Jordan Battle took a step back, or Mike Hilton gets hurt because he's damn near 32, 33 now, you have a guy who can fill in slot there for you.
Yeah.
Then I'll bring back We talked about the outside corner problem. What are you going to do at outside corner? I'm bringing in Steven Nelson. Tried and true. The dude's just played 900 plus snaps for 5 straight seasons, been just a solid outside corner. I'm willing to bring him in, let him be that other boundary corner, mix it in, maybe relegate DJ Turner to kind of that rotational role that he had. So now we got veteran safeties / slot corners. We've got outside corners. We've got right tackle, interior defensive line, tight end. And now we can walk into the draft and say, we don't have to say, crap, we need a tackle. We don't have to say, crap, we've got to hope that Brock Bowers falls to us. Crap, we got to hope that Johnny Newton falls to us, or we're panicking and then we're reaching on somebody. Or we got to trade up or trade back and now we're panicking and we get Billy Price again, right? We don't want to do that. So what I've done here, spent up to the cap with about $1 million left, $1 million or $2 million, and I filled every hole on this roster in my eyes right now to free up everybody to just get good players that can help you this year and next in the draft. That's my plan for a Bengals blueprint for the Super Bowl.
I like your blueprint. I don't. There are a couple things I'll switch in there.
I know you're not a fan. I know you're not a fan of the Illuminor.
Yeah, like.
But the problem is how many right tackles are out there right now?
Trent
Because
Brown,
there's
yeah.
a lot of left tackles.
Trent Brown.
Do you feel comfortable that he's going to
I would
be
feel
healthy?
I
Do
would
you
feel-
feel like he's not going to get 12, 13, 14
No, I don't
million?
think he'd get that. I think he's robbed the league before, and
That's
I
fair.
think that there's real concerns, and I also think he's going to be very weird about who he signs with. Personally, I think
If he's willing to come in at the same price that Illuminor is, like,
yeah,
I'd be willing to do that. I'd hear that 100%. I
for
just,
sure. I'm not fully against him, Illuminor. I'm not fully against.
I
him.
was looking for an $8 million a year right tackle that you feel good about for this year.
Yeah.
That gives you the chance. Hey, like we said, it's a good offensive tackle class, but that dries up after the second round. So then, hey, okay, Brock Bowers falls to you, or D-line falls to you, or Jared Verse falls to you, right? Or Terry and Arnold falls in your lap and you say, we feel like this is the best, right?
Yeah.
Then you can come back in the second round, get a tackle, and he doesn't have to play right away.
Yeah, I can get behind that.
So that's why I kind of was going that route.
I can get behind that. I respect it. Logan, do you have a detailed plan?
Well, it's not going to be as detailed as that. I'm going to be a little more freeform with it. Give everybody a little bit of more thoughts, and continue to provide more detail as the offseason comes along. But to provide a different perspective on things, I think, again, this is just me, how I'm approaching things. I think if I was the Bengals, I think I would probably just tag and trade T, because I think that day is going to come regardless. I don't think anybody sees T Higgins here really long term. So if you can, obviously you don't know what the compensation is going to be, but just for my example, let's say we trade him to the Giants, get a early second, early third, something next year. That's, the 6th pick of the second round, 6th pick of the third round, something in the future, whatever. So we're adding some more draft capital there. But I think in free agency, I'm going to approach it a little differently than Evan. I think I'm going to go not necessarily big name hunting, but sure up the offensive line side of things, just because I think there's some guys that I just really like. And I think, the future of the interior offensive line is very scary. And that starts after
I wanted Nwenu for that
this
really
next
badly.
year. So I think the two people I would pay up for on the offensive line this offseason would be Michael Nwenu. Obviously, he can come in and he can start at right tackle, or he can move into guard. He can do whatever you want. But another guy I've tweeted about that I really like this year for the Bengals is Lloyd Cushenberry. Coincidentally, Joe Burrow's center at LSU.
He is a free agent.
Yep. Joe Burrow's center at LSU. Obviously, we have Ted. Ted's great. Also, aging, going to be a free agent this upcoming season. So you can bring in Lloyd. He can play guard. He can play center. Ted can play guard. Ted can play center. Whatever. So now, regardless of the fact, you have your offensive line built solid. Cordell Volson immediately slides into a backup swing, everything pretty much. It still allows you to, if you really want to, draft a tackle essentially at 18 if you really feel the value's there, because in the next year you can just move a Nwenu in, the tackle can sit and learn, and boom, your offensive line is good and set. And then on defensive side, you still need something on the defensive line. And I think I'm either going to go after Leonard Williams. It could be a little more expensive with those two. I really like Javon Kinlaw too. I just like the swing there, man. He's shown a bunch of flashes.
No, that's the tough part. You did so much good, because that's the
tough.
T Higgins thing freed up a lot of money for you. Where
that's
you can
kind
get
of my thought
you
process
can get
for
Leonard Williams. I wanted both of those guys.
And now I have the picks to kind of take a swing at the the top of the second round. There's going to be plenty of good receivers. You have your Troy Franklins, you have your Lad McConkeys, you have your Donald Mitchells, you have your Xavier Worthies. Like, you have so many people that can come in and kind of play that inside outside versatility. Or you don't even have to draft a receiver. You can draft a receiver with the Bengals second round pick. In that early second, you can take a Tavondre Sweat. You can take a Darius Robinson. You can take another interior defender, whatever you like. Or maybe Newton's there at 18. Now you want to take a tackle at whatever the sixth pick of the second round.
Mm-hmm.
It just frees you up and allows you to kind of get whatever I talked about earlier. You have more top 100 assets. And because we spent more big names in free agency, now we have these picks in the draft. You can kind of feel more like a luxury. You can take a wide receiver early. You can take a tight end early. We can take a corner if we want with one of our second round picks now, because we know we have the spot to do it. We can afford to do that because we know we have a pick just 20 picks later. You can do the same thing in the third round. You can double up at interior defensive lineman. And the reason I kind of shored up the offensive line is just kind of like Evan said, the top end of this offensive line class is really good. There's some okay depth guys. There always is. But we all know the Bengals' history of drafting offensive linemen. And I would just rather play it safe and spend the money there and just continue to dive into the defense side of the ball in the drafts and, take a couple swings on these interior defensive linemen, these Dwayne Carters, these Mason Smiths, these Leonard Taylors. There's so many intriguing interior defensive linemen that just makes sense. You can play so many different roles. The Bengals have seemingly developed defensive linemen decently, at least better than offensive linemen, which at the end of the day is truly all that matters to me. But again, in my scenario, I'm shoring up the offensive line with Cushenberry and Owinahu, signing somebody in the interior on the defensive side of the ball, Leonard Williams or Kinlaw, obviously price depending. Then you're just free reign in the draft to do truly whatever you want. You can still take tackles. You can take a receiver at 18 if you want, for all I care, because you have so many other picks. You have so many other swings. You have so many other dart throws that you can actually take on good players. And now there are positions that you're good at drafting. We draft good corners. We draft good receivers. So continue to put yourself in a position to keep drafting them. And I think, that can just be a way that I would continue to build up and be my blueprint.
I like both of you guys' blueprint, and I'm not sure I can outdo it. But here's what I will say. You guys focused a lot on the exterior free agents. And I definitely will get there for sure. I would personally, if we're going to have the Joe Mixon discourse, I think it's important to also have the Sam Hubbard discourse. Respectfully.
We brought that up a little bit here and there.
Yeah, it seems to be like I feel like this has been Mixon week in Cincinnati. And it almost feels like it's becoming a reoccurring thing, if you will. And I understand. You look at the cap number and you look at next year, like Paul Dehner Jr. did a great piece kind of breaking it all down and understanding as to why it might be smartest to move on from Joe Mixon. I don't know. To me, the production of Joe Mixon and feeling that he still has more tread on the tires, to me is, especially a guy that wants to be here and has said as much in the Cincinnati Enquirer last, 2 years ago, and has even proven that by taking a reworked contract. I don't want to call it a pay cut.
And the other part of that is, like you said, that even though the cap number is 8.5, the cash number is $5.5 million. And even if you do get those cap savings, if you go sign a running back for $3.5 million, you save $2 million.
Right.
And yes, that's $2 million. That's a lot to us, but like in terms of the cap, it's not a big difference. So I just wanted to interject with that.
100%.
Yeah.
So I think for me, the entire Joe Mixon discourse is interesting, but I think if you're going to have that discourse, you have to have the Sam Hubbard discourse as well, because Sam Hubbard is getting paid $10 million this year. That aside, what I would do personally is I definitely would look to add a tight end in free agency. That's one of the first moves I'd make because it was a spot that was really sore for the Bengals this year. You guys know who I'm looking at. I don't think there's no secret about that. There's a guy named Noah Fant who's had terrible quarterback play, who has gotten paid. And to be honest with you, his numbers were down. His numbers have been down the last 2 years, and I think you'll be able to get him for a really, really cheap prove-it deal. Also, to remind everybody, a lot like last year, since the tight end market was booming in free agency, what happens is the value in free agency for the tight end market was booming in the draft. The tight end market in free agency has come down significantly. So a lot of guys that you didn't expect had to sign for prove-it deals, like Mike Gesicki signing for, what was it, $4.5 million, $3.5 million, something, whatever it was. So I think you're going to probably get Noah Fant on the same type of deal. See if he can work something out where he signs a 2-year, $5 million deal in Cincinnati. I think that makes a lot of sense. Obviously, I'm going to go about it with the aspect that they're going to franchise tag T. Higgins, because I fully expect that. As I've been saying, franchise tag T. Higgins is $20 million off the book. Sign Noah Fant. That's good. I'm okay if you bring back Drew Sample. I'm okay if you bring back Tanner Hudson. I think he's fine as a tight end 2, right? But I don't think that you need to run him out there as your tight end 1. I think the next move that I would try to make is, I love what Logan said about adding the Lloyd Cushenberry. I think he's a fit. I think he's a guy that makes sense. I think he's an upgrade over Ted Karras, respectfully. From a defensive tackle standpoint, listen, plug as many holes as Evan said. So that way, when you go into free agency, you're not saying we need to draft said position. Yeah. I would try to make an offer to Trent Brown to see.
Sometimes the draft falls right in your lap where it's like, God, we need a cornerback, and God, here's Cooper DeJean right here, just waiting. But you can't bank on that, right?
Playing a risky game,
extremely dangerous.
And so for me, I think that a position I would definitely try to attack is the defensive tackle position. I would try to go out there and see what I can, because that's a position that I feel like if you splurge, and I say that very loosely, it could really benefit you in the future. And I see you, Benjamin Harrison, asking about Jonathan Allen. I just look at the price tag of what that guy might get, especially when we're preparing for contracts in the future. Love a Jamar Chase. It may not just shake out that way. And also the draft capital. Are you willing to give up a 2nd-round pick for Jonathan Allen? Me, yes. But money, no.
He's also 29.
Yeah, it has to make sense, I would say. So I think that a lot of the moves that these guys talked about, Maurice Hurst is a guy with good pass rush upside. He's a guy that you know what he could potentially give. I love the Javon Kinlaw. I love the Leonard Williams. All those guys make sense for me. For me, I think the draft is going to shake one or two ways. But so for me, what I'll say is, if you are able to address the right tackle position, let's say you are able to grab a Trent Brown. Okay, that's something I'm checking off my book right there. I don't have to worry about that. Right. Let's say if you are able to add one defensive tackle, the defensive tackle that I'm looking for is, I'm looking for a defensive tackle, a guy that probably has been written off, a guy that still has some type of upside, because he's not going to cost a lot. I do think when we're talking about some of these guys, like we brought up, I do think Javon Kinlaw could make sense. But if we see the value in him, would some team be able to up that? If
we're not their only fan base thinking about it.
So to me, that muddies the waters a little bit. So I'm looking at guys like Sebastian Joseph Day. I think he's a guy that could make sense to you. You have to also remember, in this entire process, you still have BJ Hill in the fold, right? Mm-hmm. I think that there's a name like Solomon Thomas. He's a guy that the Bengals loved coming out of the draft, and I fully believe if he was there, the Bengals were going to draft him. At least that's what's been said to me. So you look at all this, there are some names that could make sense, but it again, you want to make sure that you are not cutting into the money that is going to be needed to re-sign a guy like Jamar Chase. Especially, one thing we haven't even talked about, maybe you re-sign, maybe you extend Jamar Chase this offseason.
Yeah,
maybe you do that. I think
the Bengals would be like, yes, let's do that. I think Jamar and his agent are like, let's kick dirt for a little bit. Guy like Justin Madubuike
hits free agency, 100% you make a run for him. 100%. He's a guy with huge upside. He's still young. He still has a lot left to give. So those are things that I'm looking at, for instance. But I think for me, in free agency, I want to leave with a tight end. I want to leave with a defensive tackle, right? A guy that, let's say, it doesn't have to, if I can't land the Christian Wilkins, if I can't land the Justin Madubuike, if I can't land any of those guys on that tier, let's land a guy that maybe hasn't panned out the best where he was, but we see the upside because we've seen enough flashes. Insert whoever name you like there. Yes, right tackle, Illuminator, sure. Insert him. What's his name? The other right tackle we were just talking about. Winahu. But I think that's a guy that's going to be able to command a lot. Personally.
But see, that's the tricky part of this exercise, right? Because as soon as you say I'm bringing back T, you go from $59 million of cap to $39 million. And let's say, again, the Bengals like to have their $8 or $9 million separate for rookies and whatever else they like to do rollover. Yeah. So you really realistically have 30 some odd $billion, right, to work with. And as soon as you sign a guy like a Christian Wilkins or a Justin Madubuike, which you should do, then you have $10 million left to go sign a couple of these. And again, like you said, there are a number of guys, especially on the interior defensive line, where you're talking about like Ashawn Robinson, Shelby Harris. Like, you can get guys who have the skill set to fit roles for very cheap, $2-3 million a year, right? Much easier than you can do that at tackle. But as soon as you sign one of those blue chip guys, you really limit yourself from
Right.
we are no longer playing in the like C tier of free agency. We're playing in the tier 4 type deal, which again, you can find good players there. They found Von Bell there. They got Ted Karras, and Alex Kappa was a little bit earlier and a little bit more, but like there are still good players to be had there. And it's more about filling holes at that point. But yeah,
And there's still the possibility of just re-signing DJ Reader for a year or two too, and then
again,
attacking the
what's that
draft.
price
And
point look? And this is part of what
that's
I'm
the
excited
interesting-
for.
I can't figure that out.
So when we go to the combine, obviously, like everybody's going to be rubbing shoulders. There's going to be a lot of
Yeah.
information trading hands. People are going to be gauging kind of
Right.
what's the interest in this guy?
Right.
What's the interest in that guy? So I think maybe a week after the combine, we're going to see guys like Brad Spielberger, who works for Over the Cap and Pro Football Focus, like update their projections for a lot of these guys. And we're going to get a lot more accurate readings, because I don't think DJ Reader is now getting the $14-15 million a year he was projected. So where those numbers end up landing is going to be really interesting. So we're going to get a
Very
lot
important.
more information here in the next week or two.
Yeah, 100%. And this is my favorite time of the year, right? It's time, it's go time. But I do want to address a couple of things. There's some comments I'm seeing in the comment section. I want to address the Kevin Zeitler thing. Somebody bringing up Kevin Zeitler. I don't see that happening because of the way things ended here in Cincinnati. You players remember, when you lowball them or you didn't make a serious offer to attempt to keep them, and it's because of philosophy, right? Not paying guards X amount of money. And Kevin Zeitler has gone on to have a fantastic career, but I don't see that happening, guys, to be honest with you. Another thing that I want to address one thing. Where's it at? I just saw it. It said Kevin Zeitler, Mixon. Somebody said Mixon has to go. I like Josh Jacobs. So let's talk about that.
You are going to pay
Yeah.
13, 14, 15 million dollars
Before he
for
ran
him
back.
and Saquon. And Saquon has been hurt with, again, not like, freak twist of an ankle, like soft tissue injuries that just recur constantly, hamstring, groin, all that stuff. So just, I'm out, not paying you top of market.
We're not
money at
paying.
that.
We're not. Listen, to move on from Joe Mixon, you're moving on from Joe Mixon
Because of the money.
not because of the production. The production was good this year for the most part. Obviously, I think a lot of things have to shake out right for this running game to take that next step. And I just think guys got to be a little patient, right? I feel like there's a lot of like people just jumping on him and ready to move on just for whatever reason. But you got to look at this from a logistical standpoint. Moving on from Joe Mixon to pay Saquon Barkley or
$12 million a year, but
somebody
again,
said,
going back to the cash, you're paying 5. I know the cap's 8.5, but the cash to the Bengals is 5.5 at Mixon, and you are going to pay twice that at least for Josh Jacobs.
Somebody said, he had a great year, but we need a bruiser back. Joe Mixon is what you would consider, respectfully, a bruiser back.
And also, if you want to pay for just a bruising back, you can do that very cheap.
And the other part of that too is like, I was talking with someone else about this too, and it's like, yes, objectively, the free agent class for running backs is strong. Like there are a lot of good, talented running backs: Saquon, Josh Jacobs, Derrick Henry, Tony Pollard, Austin Eckler, DeAndre Swift. But how many of these guys are the Bengals interested in playing with? Again, like you said, you've got to be at Mixon level money or less to make this worth it, because there's not a significant enough upgrade. Because the running back, again, we're getting back to the running backs. Not the don't matter argument. That was never the argument. It was that their value was not as important as originally believed, right? Or that they're easily.
It's the reason they're all
replaceable.
free agents.
It's because there's so many running backs out there that can. I don't want to oversimplify the running back position, but it is not as technical or unique of a skill set as a 6 foot, 300-pound guy who can move and play tackle, right? Or as a guy who's that large and can bend the corner on defensive end, right? These are more unique traits. There are a lot of very, very talented athletes who have played running back since Pee Wee in high school because they were the best player on their team. There's a lot of guys with that experience and the skill set to play running back. That's part of why there's that replacement value. Sorry to go off on that tangent, but at the same time,
I think this is the first show, by the way, that you guys are speaking more than me. I love it.
We're getting it all out, man. Logan and I have been over here stooling, but like, so you look at the bargain bin, right? And you say, what are we going to get around there, right? Okay. So J.K. Dobbins, a lot of injury.
Kind of fun though.
J.K. Dobbins, fun swing. But I don't want to say we're going to cut Mixon to save money and then pay him, and he's going to be taking 50, 60% of the workload with Chase Brown, right? That's
Yeah.
sketchy because of the injury stuff. Devin Singletary looked great with the Texans this year. They literally benched their former first-round pick for him this year after, 2 years after he looked great last year and the year before. So, I feel like they're going to bring him back. Why wouldn't they, right?
Wait, who's this?
Devin Singletary?
Yeah.
Why wouldn't they? They'd be like, you earned the job for us. Here you
He's
go.
a running
We
back,
can
though,
pay
so you
and
never
keep
know.
there, right?
But-
AJ Dillon. I will not sit here and tell you that Mixon is an efficient running back. You know who was
Worst?
the worst? Like almost the literal worst was AJ Dillon.
Yeah.
Like when Aaron Jones was out and AJ Dillon was just getting the load. Oh my God, the Packers run game was just terrible. Like you need Jesus. Zach Moss. Great year last year again, right? But injuries in Buffalo was not interested in even remotely bringing him back, even at a low cost. Like
traded him for Naheem Hines.
right. And so he looked
Another running
healthy.
back.
He looked healthy and good last year, but you're taking a big gamble on any of these guys that I just named to bring them back and say, you're going to carry 50% of the workload for us and you're going to stay healthy or you're going to produce. That's the difference of last year when we talked about it last week, when you had 10 running backs from round 2 to 4 that you're like, I can give half the workload to him this year, right? Yeah. Where you had Ezekiel Elliott sitting there for $5 million in free agency, and you said he's going to be healthy and he can carry the ball, right? And he can be a receiver or pass block. There's just, or Kareem Hunt for $5 million, right? I just don't see the easy avenues to replacing him for a cheaper cost.
Yeah.
And I say this as someone who I don't think people bring up the all-purpose yards. I don't think Mixon is like a top 5 or a top 10 back. I feel like a lot of it's been potential, and I know part of it's the offensive line, but again, running backs have produced outside of that.
Yeah.
There were 10 running backs last year who averaged more yards per carry than Mixon, not for this last season, for his good season the year before. There were more running backs, 10 more, who averaged more yards per attempt, and had a worse offensive line in terms of run blocking. So the idea that you just can't produce with a bad offensive line, I watched a bunch of different guys do that.
Yeah.
Force missed tackles. The Texans line was literally backup practice squad, and Damian Pierce was out there
all
forcing
year.
missed tackles, right? It was Aaron Jones was doing it with the entire Green Bay line hurt.
So I'll say this. Look, I want to touch on one thing that Rage Al Ghul says. We keep getting
Raj Al Ghul.
So we keep getting this. What did I say?
It's a little Batman reference. It's fine. I'm just being a nerd. It's fine.
Somebody asked.
Good name. I like
it. Clowney. Clowney has been sitting out there for the last couple of frames. I promise you, I think the jig is up with him. Teams know what he is. Teams know what they're getting. They're getting a guy who wants to latch onto a team that potentially competing for a championship. That's about it. So,
but also
Bengals,
you may pay for Jadeveon Clowney. You are not getting last year's Jadeveon Clowney. That was crazy. No one was ready for that.
And he hasn't been performing like that
for 5-6 years, and he's bounced around to 3 different teams. No one's wanted to keep him. His attitude has reportedly not been great on every team.
It's not good.
And
this is a guy that still believes that he's up there with some of the top in the league.
He's like DeAndre. Is he the DeAndre Ayton of the NFL?
Oh God.
I'm the man. I should be paid. You like that comp? You like that comp? You like that? Yeah. I'm good at sports stuff.
I'll say this as well. So last thing I'll touch on, because we've already reached an hour on the show. I can't believe it. But if you guys could do us a favor, give this video a like, subscribe to the YouTube channel, and turn on post notifications so you guys don't miss when we go live or upload content from the First Star Logistics Studio. We have constant content, UFC content. We talk about NFL, more things other than Bengals. So if you want to hear my opinion and hear me talk on things, I appreciate these guys today. They brought the fire today, so I kind of get to rest my voice a little bit. But here's what I will say. This is some of the stuff that I've been hearing from draft perspective already. It's non-Bengals, though. Here's what I'll say. So I was told today, just give you guys a little insider tidbits just so you know Malik season is arriving. Apparently, the Chicago Bears are actually split on Caleb Williams. Let's start there. There's a lot of people in the Chicago Bears organization that love the player, as it was told to me today. What?
I'm just laughing because I work with a diehard Bears fan, and he loves Caleb. He's a football coach. He loves Caleb Williams and does not like Drake May. And I told him, literally the day I was like, they hired Shane.
Waldron.
Yeah, they hired Shane Waldron. I was like, you know who they're going to pick now, right? He was like, don't say it. Don't put this into existence.
Well,
and I said, Drake
I'm going.
I'm just laughing.
I'm going somewhere with this.
Yeah. Go ahead.
I was told directly today. So they love the player. They don't like the the off the field stuff. They don't like the person.
They don't like his aura?
They're because he's also represented by his dad, so it makes things
Yeah,
a
by
little bit
nobody.
hairy. And to your point, I was told they're not considering Marvin Harrison at all.
They
At one.
shouldn't.
They're also not even considering trading out of the number 1 pick. They're not taking calls on it. And there is a contingency that do like Drake May. So
As long as it ain't Justin, that's why I thought you were going with it at
If
first.
if it's not Caleb Williams, it might be Drake May. Now, obviously, it's smokescreen season. The season just started, so you could be hearing a whole bunch of stuff. I can't wait for this week, my favorite time of year, because it's a lot. And Ben is great. Me and Ben are friends. We talk every now and again. I see you saying in the comment section. My initial belief is I do believe they're going to draft Caleb Williams 100%. But all I can say is what I was told today. I'm not here to dog anybody's report or, say anybody's wrong or none of that. I can tell you what I was told today. And today, as it stands, they have not made a decision when it comes to the quarterback position. I still believe if chips were on the table today, I bet Caleb Williams is going to win.
And they made the correct decision with it not being Justin Fields. So applaud to them.
Let's talk about that. I don't agree with you. I don't agree with you.
Man.
No. Let's really talk about it, because we can dive into this all day. Listen, the fact of the matter is, what are we actually talking about? For me, I think that Caleb Williams and Justin Fields are very similar players. They are. I think Caleb Williams has the more impressive arm talent. He does. But I think Justin Fields is a guy. I am not a Justin Fields truther here. Marissa, you know this about me. I am not a Justin Fields. Let me have my little monologue for a second. I am not a Justin Fields truther at all. Yeah. But to sit up here and act like Caleb Williams is some far and away better prospect than Justin Fields, I'm not there yet. I'm not there. I'm sorry.
But you have to pay Justin Fields versus you get cheap Caleb Williams.
The guy. I understand the reason why you have to draft the Caleb Williams is he's the guy. Because I sat back on the show and I've been kind of quiet today. But you have to draft Caleb Williams because he's the new shiny toy. He's the guy coming out with all the hype. He is the quote-unquote generational prospect, which I think is loosely used. And I think a lot of people
that was week crazy. 4 ESPN talk, and then we shut that shit down.
But regardless, that's what the talk was coming out of the draft for a guy like Caleb Williams. The fact of the matter is, if we're breaking it down to nuts and bolts, you're getting guys that have similar strengths and similar weaknesses. No matter which way you slice it, does Caleb Williams have the more impressive arm talent? 100%. Do they both struggle reading defenses? 100%. Is Justin Fields the better athlete? 100%. That's my opinion. I think the only reason why people are taking the Caleb Williams is because he's the new shiny toy coming out. The fact of the matter is Justin Fields has had new offensive coordinators, has had change of coaching staff. And let's face it, the fact of the matter is this regime did not want him when they first took over.
No,
that's the reason why they allowed him to sink and swim by himself. He showed promise. It's not his fault he got hurt, but I feel like Justin Fields has been walking around with a target on his back since this regime has taken over. Chicago Bears, 100%. Go out there, draft Caleb Williams. Don't be shocked if you're asking yourself the similar questions a year from now. Give these guys a chance to work in the NFL. Give these guys a stable place. The most important thing for a quarterback is where you land. CJ Stroud landed in a great situation. He landed in a great situation.
Yeah, he did.
He landed in a great situation. Couldn't ask for a better situation. Bobby Slowick, Houston, Texas, DeMeco Ryans, they fit around his skill set. Can Justin Fields get that? I think he could, but I think it's not going to be with the Chicago Bears. Yeah, so if you're questioning yourself and you're asking yourself, is Justin Fields the guy? At this point in time, move on. Let the guy go to a new place, prove himself. I'd like that place to be Atlanta. If not, whatever, trade him somewhere else. Let him grow. Let him be what he could be. If he's either going to fail or he's going to succeed, draft Caleb Williams. Let's see how the guy shakes out. Let's see how the guy shakes out, because what I've seen from Caleb Williams, and I watch a lot of film and I watch a lot of Caleb Williams, is I saw a guy that struggled every time he faced adversity. And that's the metric I use to judge a quarterback off. That's how I knew Trevor Lawrence was going to struggle a little bit in the NFL, because when he faced a slight bit of adversity at Clemson, what happened? He folded. Caleb Williams, when he faced a slight bit of adversity, he folded. People forget. The same guy that got benched at OU. He came to USC. He's had dud performances. Against probably the best defense he placed was what? Utah?
I mean, Oregon.
Oregon.
I got. Look, we're gonna get way into this when we start talking more about the draft.
But I'm gonna talk about it because I've been quiet today. So I've been addressing it. Hold on, Evan. Let me talk for a second. The fact of the matter is that's where I stand when it comes. And I've been quiet today. That's the reason why I'm saying this. The fact of the matter is, Caleb, I think that this discourse between Caleb Williams and Justin Fields has gone off the rails a little bit. Acting like Caleb Williams is some can't miss prospect is bullshit. And acting like Justin Fields is so horrible to me.
You're just ignoring 80% of the conversation, though. You're eliminating all of the context and just saying in a vacuum, Justin Fields or Caleb Williams, right?
Listen,
the thing is, Justin Fields takes a shit ton of sacks and very bad ones. He has no pocket field.
So does Caleb Williams.
The other part of this is you're talking about Caleb Williams and a second-round pick that you get from Justin Fields, plus you get 5 years of cost-controlled quarterback play versus you right now, GM. You have to sign Justin Fields to a contract right now. What are you paying him a year?
Wait, I think you're missing what I'm saying. I literally just said the Chicago Bears have to draft Caleb Williams because the film on Justin Fields has caused them to question if Justin. We're agreeing more than we're disagreeing.
Fields deserves to leave. Fields deserves to leave.
I 100%. Let me make this very clear because I don't want anyone twisting my words. I said the Chicago Bears are in a situation where they have to draft Caleb Williams because that's the discourse right now. Is Caleb Williams, is Justin Fields our guy? If you're still asking yourself that question with the new regime, he's not your guy. Move on. Let the guy go on somewhere else. You might as well trade him. I'm not looking at anything in a vacuum. All I'm saying is acting as if Caleb Williams is some can't miss prospect.
That's not to me. That's first of all, that's people being dumb generating headlines, right? The same people who are like Kyler Murray is a generational prospect, right? No. Andrew Luck was a generational prospect, and that might be the last one from the last decade, right? That's what generational prospect means, right? Once every decade, every 2 decades.
It's a loosely term. It's a quarterback-driven league.
It's overused. Can't miss is fucking bullshit. There's no can't miss prospect.
Right.
Okay, so let's just eliminate all the bullshit, hot name, ESPN, garbage talk, lexicon, right? To be fair to Caleb Williams, and Logan, you can speak to this, and we'll go into more detail about this as we break things down because we're already at an hour and 20 minutes.
And we'll go an hour and 20 minutes if I need to.
I think Caleb Williams is a better short and intermediate passer than Justin Fields, easily. Yeah. So I don't think they're the same player. They have the same strengths and weaknesses. I disagree. I think they have the same sack problem. Yes. I also think that the wide receivers for USC running wrong routes
and the
6
offensive
and 8
line
weeks in, the offensive line being dog shit, the defense being dog shit, and Cliff Kingsbury being your fucking offensive coordinator all contributed to a terrible offensive structure. You talked about how much fit and surroundings matter and you being able to succeed. When you're talking about him going back there and just creating the fucking offense himself because it's 1 read, 2 read, and suddenly there's not shit out there. And also one of my 2 reads ran the wrong route into the other guy.
Or he's 80 yards down the field.
Right. So running. Like, that's when I'm like, the context of this matters so much.
Context does matter. So again, we're agreeing more than we're disagreeing because I literally just said.
I disagree.
Hold on, Evan, hold on. I sat up on the show and I was quiet and I let you speak. So let me speak.
Go ahead.
I literally said we're agreeing more than we're disagreeing because I did say where you land matters. So exactly in what I'm saying, we're not going to act like Luke Getsky or whoever the offensive coordinator was with the Bears absolutely sucks. So we're acting as if Caleb Williams going to the Chicago Bears is a perfect situation. It's not. He's landing in the same situation with a coach, with an offensive. Well, I know they fired Getsy, so we don't know what it's going to look like.
Right.
All I'm saying
I'm just saying about USC.
All I'm saying, again,
the Chicago Bears argument for the USC.
Where we fit. So when I said that they're going to end up, when I say we might have the same conversation a year from now, that's what I'm referring to. Because the Bears, I don't view the Bears as stable. I don't think Eberflus will be the head coach of the Bears next year.
I'm surprised he is this year.
I don't believe that. I don't believe that. I'm surprised he's still here. So when I say he's landing in a situation in which, so we might be having the same conversation a year from now, that's what I'm referring to. Because guess what? I do think Justin Fields does have issues. I do think Caleb Williams has some issues. And at least we're agreeing on the fact that they both hold the ball long, right? Yeah. So I don't think the Bears had the greatest offensive line. It's the reason why they had to go out there and sign a 40-ass-year-old Jason Peters to be their left tackle. And somehow that guy's still around the league. Don't know why. But guess what? Here we are. So when I say Caleb Williams and Justin Fields, we might be having the same conversation next year. It's because the Bears are an organization that continuously shoots themselves in the foot. So a year from now, if we're asking ourselves, damn, Caleb Williams struggled. Damn, they almost taking too many sacks. Damn, why isn't everything looking great? I thought he was a generational, can't miss prospect. All that BS that we know ESPN and all these other places generate, that's what I'm referring to. At least for Caleb Williams, he can see the light. At least for Justin Fields, he can see the light at the end of the tunnel. He's almost like all the pain, all the suffering that I went through. Oh, It's right there because now I could probably get traded out somewhere else. And
Yeah, that's the thing with
you know.
Fields for me. Like, I like the whole discourse with everything. Like, I'm a big Caleb Williams guy. It's always been Caleb Williams for me. But Justin Fields in Chicago was brutally terrible.
They did not set him up for success.
He was brutally terrible all the
100%.
time. And there's no doubt about it. There's no way.
And it was intentional.
Yeah,
That's the issue.
Yeah. There's so many issues with how his tenure in Chicago played out, his fault or not, regardless of the fact. The fact is he was terrible.
Mhm.
And but the thing with Justin Fields too is like you said, I'm excited for him to leave.
Yeah.
He does do a lot of good things well. The situation there is terrible. And I, have always talked about how bad Justin Fields is. I'm interested to see how it all folds out. Now we're going to really see what the issue is. And we know it's probably a little bit of both at the end of the day, but there's still, is Caleb Williams going to come and just immediately mask every issue the Chicago Bears have? Is Justin Fields going to leave and continue to be terrible, or is he going to leave and continue to develop and turn into this great quarterback? And I think that's the fun part about, the offseason, the quarterbacks all switching places. We can see the different level of talent. Yes, I believe Caleb Williams is amazing. I'm super high on Caleb. He should be the Bears pick, whatever. But I'm also excited to see what Justin Fields can do, because there's a lot, even Pittsburgh, Atlanta, like Denver, there's so many fun places for him to go that are just going to be better than Chicago. Like, it's just one of those things that, like, we can talk about how good it is for both quarterbacks instead of just talking about how one quarterback sucks. That's coming from a person who I think Justin Fields has been terrible. So, and I love Caleb Williams. So I'm just interested to see how it plays out for both of them.
So I want to make this very clear. I am not a Justin Fields guy. I've never been a Justin Fields guy. Marissa is a Justin Fields guy. She's Ohio State. I'm not. I've been on record saying that. You can go look at the YouTube videos in the past. I've been on record saying that. But I do want to call out when I don't believe a guy's been given a fair shake. I will say that. I'll say when a guy, I don't feel like a guy's been given
I feel like we can say that without tearing down Caleb Williams. That's all I'm saying.
No. And I think the point that you're missing, what I'm saying is, I'm not tearing down Caleb Williams. I'm tearing down where Caleb Williams is going to land. I'm tearing down the Bears organization right now, the regime that they currently have. I don't believe Eberflus will be there, and I don't believe in what they're building with him as the head coach. So again, that's why I said, and I want to make this super clear, we might be having the same conversation a year from now, asking ourselves questions about Caleb Williams, not because of Caleb Williams.
To be fair, Eberflus did in the last half of the season have the Bears playing like a top 10 defense.
Sure,
for a while, they were top 10 or top 6. So with that, and then Shane Waldron comes in, and now you're getting a guy who we watched what he did with Geno. When the offensive line got hurt like crazy, he said, watch this. I'm going to bring tight ends in, and we're just going to do a side card formation. And I'm going to get creative with everything and use the strengths and the abilities that I have. That's what they needed with Justin Fields, like you said. So that's why I'm optimistic that when you have a guy like DJ Moore, when you have guys like Cole Kmet, when you have Roshan Johnson, when you have these weapons and all this capital on top of that, plus probably a second-round pick for Justin Fields, like I see a lot of different ways that you can help prop him up until things like the offensive line are, because obviously Andrew Billings cannot be starting for you in the year 2024 on your D line.
And that's
right?
what I'm saying, though. I wish, and again, Bengal 619 Bengals fan, you must have missed the discourse. Again, I am not a Justin Fields guy, but I do believe quarterbacks deserve a fair shake, because I think where you land does matter. Yeah, I've said this
teams
before.
Bust as much as players do.
If Shane Waldron was the offensive coordinator for the Bears through this entire time, it
for the last 4 years,
different.
Oh yeah.
But I want to take credit where credit's due. When Getsky got hired, and Marissa told me that would have been a good hire because he came from the Packers, and I said no, it's not going to be a good hire, and I think it's going to prove it.
Didn't we do this with? Was it Alex Van Pelt? Didn't we do this? Are we getting the you worked around Aaron Rodgers for a little bit?
Yeah,
so I think
it's that. I just think, again, we'll see how it all shakes out. I believe quarterbacks deserve a fair shake. That's what I want people to take away from this. It's not me standing on one side. I ain't a Caleb Williams guy.
Look at Baker Mayfield.
Look at Bryce Young, man. There's people writing off Bryce Young already after 1 year with an abysmal Carolina Panthers
terrible offensive line. Your best weapon was 34-year-old Adam Thielen on his last legs, and
it's important where you land. And I think the biggest thing, it's beyond where obviously having a stable offensive coordinator around you, a stable head coach around you. Here's the biggest thing I want people to remember: you have to be wanted where you're at. You got to be wanted where you're at. I think I almost view the quarterback position like a child. You have to be nurtured. You have to be given the tools to succeed in life. And if you're a quarterback, you have to be given the tools and to succeed in the National Football League. And if you're not, you might fall on your face. You can have all the arm talent in the world, but if you don't have a stable regime around you, then guess what? It won't work. But that being said, guys, I want to thank you guys for tuning in for another episode of State of the Jungle, presented by First Star Logistics. I almost said the sit down because that's the name of the YouTube channel. Want to make sure that you guys give this video a like, subscribe to the YouTube channel, turn on post notifications so you guys don't miss when we go live or upload content. Next week, I'll be live from Indy. The NFL Combine is coming our way, and I'm excited for it. Excited to see my many friends and get the scoop on things as well. These guys will be joining me Wednesday for an episode of State of the Jungle live from Indy. But until next time, we hope to see you guys there. Who day?